Walking alone up a mountain at 4 in the morning. The things we do for landscape photography. But as they say, you've got to be in it to win it. I had already pre-visualised the image I wanted days in advance, so a surprisingly rare clear morning in the near monsoonal weather we've been experiencing lately provided my opportunity. The composition framed a lone mountain cairn with a ridge of peaks extending back to North Barul, the island's second highest summit. The compelling motivation for venturing out at this frankly stupid time was to capture the rising sun, which at this time of year lines up perfectly with the ridge. My tripod, Z7, 14-30 and a shutter release cable would be hopefully all I needed. The objective was to capture a sunstar as the sun crested over the top of the ridge. I'll explain a little later in the video how to capture sunstars, but to combat rapidly changing light levels, I shot in aperture priority mode as shutter speed was largely irrelevant, and used bracketing to give me a dynamic range safety net, so to speak. To complicate matters, the depth of field was too large to get it right in one image front to back, so I would need to focus stack the image too. My window of opportunity would be very narrow indeed, so I need a lot of luck and to be on my A game to get it right. The sunrise was absolutely beautiful, with impressive views out to the Lake District in Scotland, making me feel like I could almost reach out and touch them. Most importantly, I had my sunstar image in the bag. The painfully early start had been worth it, and in my experience, they almost always are. So I packed up my gear and made a leisurely hike back down the peak, allowing me to enjoy the hills of the Isle of Man all to myself. Well, except the sheep. It really had been a gorgeous morning that could have so easily been missed if I'd just hit the alarm snooze button. I'm really happy how the final images turned out here, and it matched my vision for the scene. The sunburst has turned out pretty well too, and helps to draw the eye into the image, whilst making a more visually impressive feature out of the sun, which would otherwise be a tiny bright dot at this wide angle. Here are 3 key tips to help create sunstars. 1. Use smaller apertures. The narrower the aperture, the larger the sunstar. Usually in the sweet spot between f16 and f22, this will render them really well, but this is very lens specific. Some lenses are just better than others. It requires a bit of experimentation or internet searches to figure out which lenses work best. The Nikon 14-30 f4, which I used, creates them very easily from f11 onwards. Interestingly, the number of lens aperture blades and shape actually impact how the sunstars actually look, giving each lens potentially its own sunstar feel. 2. Shoot the sun when partially obscured. The smaller the light source, the more readily it creates sunstars. This is why I took the image while the sun was half obscured behind the mountain. Sunstars work well at sunrise or set and along shadow boundaries at any time of day. This may seem obvious, but clearer air creates better sunstars. So avoid hazy, cloudy days when the sun's intensity is diminished. A bonus tip that I almost forgot. Generally, sunburst work best at wider focal lengths. Lens flare issues can be a potential annoyance, so you can stick your finger over the sun within your composition to mitigate the flares and then blend together accordingly, making sure to remove your finger from the final image. Or not, whatever floats your boat. The final image is comprised of 3 separate exposures. For the background, I focused in on the mountain ridge and shot the image at f13, quarter of a second, 20mm, ISO 64 with no filters. The 14-30mm lens creates pretty nice sunstars without the need to stop down to incredibly narrow apertures and thereby diffracting away image sharpness. f13 represented a nice compromise spot. I probably could have shot at f14 or f16 without noticeable degradation though. Rather surprisingly, the dynamic range was captured sufficiently within a single image. The midground image was shot at the same settings, but this time I focused in for the grass just beyond the cairn. Finally, the foreground was again at the same settings, only this time a 1 second shutter speed, overexposing slightly to protect the shadows. I focused in for the rocks at the front of the scene. All 3 images were blended together in post-processing and a 16:10 crop was applied. So that's a wrap for today's video. But before I go, I just want to plug my 2021 calendars, which are now available for pre-order via my website. Link and details are down in the description. I only have a very restricted number available, so it's very much first come, first served. I pretty much never ask for anything from my subscribers, which, considering I work in marketing, I'm pretty awful at actually marketing myself. But if you do want to help support what I do in any way, then please pre-order yours today. Thanks in advance for any pre-orders and for your general support, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.